this is my answer to question 3, which is, what have you learnt from your audience feedback? Now, I received a lot of audience feedback over the past year whilst I've been creating my media products, and the first of which started back in September when I got feedback from my initial audience interviews. Now, these initial audience interviews were really helpful to find out what my target audience wanted, and one of the key things that came up in pretty much every interview was that they wanted suspense from any type of movie that they watched, in particular the horror genre. And because of this initial response mentioning suspense, I kept this in mind when making my horror trailer, and I added the chase sequence right at the beginning through the woods, and this had the intention of creating suspense right from the beginning of the trailer. The feedback from some questionnaire results also helped me to further understand what my target audience wanted. Myself and my group partner at the time, we devised a questionnaire, and then we handed it out to members of our target audience, so that we could get some audience feedback and learn what to include in our trailer. It helped us to decide the genre of our trailer, because most of the feedback we got back said that horror would be a good genre. One of the other questions we discussed was whether we should have titles or a voiceover. When we got our feedback, we learnt that we should have titles rather than a voiceover, because that's what our target audience would prefer. Feedback from instruments to be used was also really helpful, because it's helped me know where to start in GarageBand and how to construct the sound. The feedback on colours, I learnt that black, red and white are what my target audience associate with the horror genre, and so after learning this from my target audience, I then put it into practice, because in my trailer, my main male character, Matt, he's wearing black clothing, and then throughout the trailer we've got the red blood on my dead girl's dress, and then the red spray paint that represents blood on what I call the crime wall within the trailer. And then the third colour that was mentioned, which was white, I've given my dead girl a white dress. So what I learnt from my audience feedback regarding colour, I actually put into practice and actually did use within my horror trailer. This feedback also told me that my target audience wanted a male lead character. Now I was really torn between having a male or female lead character, so this really helped. And in the end, for my trailer, we did go with a male character like my target audience wanted. And then one of the other questions was regarding whether we should use a tripod or a handheld camera for filming the trailer. Now, the responses came back saying that a handheld camera would be best, but because I thought a tripod would be best, I decided to use a mix of both, so that I could put forward my own creative ideas while still listening to my target audience. So I learnt quite a lot from the questionnaire results, and I did put them into practice as well in my trailer. Another piece of feedback that I learnt quite a lot from was my teaser trailer research poll. This poll was on my blog for about 2 months, but I only got 3 responses, but it still helped overall. I asked what the people's favourite film genres were. 3 people replied with horror, which gained 100% of the vote, and so I went with the horror genre, because I really wasn't sure whether I was going to do horror, romance or thriller. And then I asked the question, would you watch a film about a man fixated on a woman? 2 people said yes and 1 said no, but my sample wasn't really large enough to judge which answer I should really go to. And in the end, I decided that I was going to do like a man sort of fixated on a woman, more fixated on a crime report about a woman's disappearance, but it still influenced my final result. And then the most important thing in a horror film, the thing that got ranked at the top, was the location. So this made me put more thought, time and effort into which locations I was going to use in my film trailer. And then the best horror film location, which came back with 100% of the votes, was a graveyard, and I did indeed include a graveyard in my trailer. And the final question was, do you like horrors based on real life events? And everyone who replied said yes. Now, although I haven't strictly said in my trailer that the events in the trailer were based on real life events, you could imagine that they were, because the plotline is not too far-fetched. Although it's got like paranormal activity and ghostly stuff happening in it, you could imagine that this had happened in the past. Even if it wasn't explicitly based on real life events. So this feedback really helped with starting to plan what my trailer was going to be like, and I learnt quite a lot from it. Some feedback I received on Facebook regarding the 2 plot proposals I put forward. The feedback came back like overwhelmingly for idea number 2. Which was predominantly my idea, rather than my partner's at the time. So this amount of overwhelmingly positive feedback for plot 2 meant that we went with plot 2, and that is what my trailer is now based around. Audience feedback regarding film name ideas was very helpful, because I really didn't have a clue what I wanted to call the film. I had an idea of calling it like Obsession, or something to do with being transfixed. And then when I received some audience feedback that included the name Transfix, I thought that it sounded really good, and it was very fitting to the plot line and the horror style that I was creating. But I thought that it sounded too much like a thriller. It was too short, too snappy, so I thought of maybe transfixiation. But then that turned out not to be a real word, so in the end I settled for transfixed. Now, had I not received this audience feedback, I probably wouldn't have come up with the name Transfixed by myself, so I really learnt a lot from this feedback, and in the end it decided what my film name was going to be. The next lot of feedback I received regarding my film trailer was for the rough version that myself and my partner created. Now, the rough version used a mixture of the animatic storyboard we created, which was just drawn images, and some rough footage that I'd filmed on my dad's video camera, so not the HD camera yet. And I learnt an awful lot from this feedback, and it was sort of the pivotal moments within my group, because after receiving this feedback, myself and my media partner in a group, we split and decided to do our work individually, pretty much based on this feedback. Basically, I ended up doing the editing for one reason or another, when that was really my partner's job, but I received quite a lot of positive feedback for the editing from my audience feedback. So the problem was, if my partner was to change the editing so that he wasn't copying what I'd done, the feedback might not be as positive. There was a lot of positive feedback around my cinematography and mise-en-scène. That was really helpful. And most of the feedback regarding changes in areas of development was regarding the sound. Now, at the time, sound was what my partner was in charge of. And this was another reason we split, because I'd done the other 3 areas and got positive feedback on it, and the one area that he'd done, we got quite, well, not negative feedback, but it was always the area for development in the feedback forms. So when we split, this feedback helped me to know what I needed to change, what I needed to do, and how I needed to progress from what my partner had previously done. So this feedback was probably the one I learnt the most from, because in the end it made me realise that myself and my partner needed to split and work on different ideas. So I learned a lot from this feedback, definitely. I also received some really positive feedback from my target audience regarding my distribution and production company logos. I put them up on Facebook and got some really positive and encouraging feedback back, and then I realised after receiving such good feedback that they didn't need changing and that I could just add them into my trailer. So I learned from that I didn't have to put in any extra work and that I'd created something that was good and professional and that my target audience liked. The next lot of audience feedback I received and learnt from was feedback from my class. And this was the first time that they'd seen my individual trailer after I'd split with my media partner. Most of the feedback was quite positive, but there were quite a few areas of development that were highlighted. One of which was it needed more sound, which I completely agreed with, and now I've added more sound to it, especially sounds such as lights flickering and twigs snapping and breathing noises as well. So I learned that I needed to add more sound, and I did to my trailer. It was also suggested that I needed more titles. Now at the time I think I only had 2, and now I have 3, so although it's only one more, it does help to tell the narrative a little more. So I learned quite a bit from this piece of feedback. Another bit of class feedback told me that some of my shots were too long. Now this was something that I'd previously thought but hadn't had time to change, because one of my shots, especially of my male talking on the phone, it was lasting far too long. You would never find anything like that in a trailer. So after receiving this feedback, I've cut down the length of him talking and put part of what he was saying over a production company logo, so it cuts down a few seconds of the clip. And then I've also cut the ending of his speech off as well, so that the clip's even shorter. So I did listen to this feedback, and I learned I needed to cut the clips down, and so I did. My friend Martha gave me some feedback over Skype regarding my sound, because she's currently a student studying sound in broadcasting and film at some university in London, so I thought she'd be really helpful to ask for some sound feedback. She liked the sound that was on it. She agreed that it was like horror style, but she felt I needed some more like eerie sounds such as breathing. And she also suggested adding like the sound of a light flickering over the scene where the light does flicker. So I took on board this really useful audience feedback, and I did record the lights in my kitchen, the fluorescent lighting flickering, and managed to add it in time over the scene in my trailer where the lights flash. So overall, I feel I've learned a lot from my audience feedback. My audience feedback has really helped shape my trailer and make it look professional. For example, if I hadn't had feedback regarding my editing and the length of my clips, then I don't think my trailer would look the way it does now, because I would have kept the long clips and I wouldn't have shortened them. For example, in the graveyard scene to start with, I didn't have any white flashes in it until I got audience feedback regarding the length of my clips. And then along with one of the clips I previously showed you where I cut it down because it was too long with the speech over it, I also cut this one down because of my audience feedback, helping it to look professional. My audience feedback has spotted things that I never spotted, such as a lack of titles, and because I already knew the plot line of my trailer, because it is my trailer, I didn't realise that people didn't quite understand what was happening because of the lack of titles. So this audience feedback really helped me get the narrative across. And again, with the sound research, the sound feedback even, from my friend Martha, if I hadn't have had that feedback, I might not have realised that there was a lack of sound on my trailer. So overall, I do feel I've learned a lot from my audience feedback, and it's really helped shape my trailer. And that is my answer to this question.